Hey everybody, it's Master Gallengeist here, bringing you my review for Judgment Day, Issue 1, Free Comic Book Day. And I don't know if that's actually what it's called, but that's kind of all I got here. I was like, Judgment Day, didn't see an issue thing, but I'm like, okay, it's the Free Comic Book Day one. And I enjoyed this one. It did a good job of kind of setting up the kind of conflicts that we're going to be getting, mainly with the whole Judgment Day between the X-Men, Avengers, and Eternals, and then setting up a little bit of a thing of Blade's daughter, and kind of setting up what's going to be going on with the X-Men. And a surprising kind of thing that I was like, oh shit, I've been a little bit abreast of what's going on, but I was like, alright, that's definitely kind of weird. So we open up with it, and we pretty much get what we've gotten in the Eternals issues, where Earth the Machine's kind of narrating kind of what's going on, talking about how prologues are kind of like the beginnings of certain things, and talking about what the Eternals are, correct excess deviations, the Avengers, for those who are like a catch-all phrase for those that are not the Eternals. They've got a sufficient enough power to be worth eternal consideration, and then there are the mutants. And this is definitely an interesting thing because you would think that the Eternals would have to have dealt with mutants at a certain point because of how their thing is very similar to mutations when dealing with deviants, of what's kind of going on with that. And this kind of sets that up as we see, like just shy of 1,000,000 years ago, we see the Eternal Uranus and Droog talking with Odin about how they found this tribe of monkeys that were able to create a hive mind. And Odin's like, what the fuck? I got lured here for drink, man. What? And Uranus is like, I just wanted to let your Avengers know that we're going to annihilate this species. And that Odin's like, what the fuck, man? It's not a deviant, it's just a mutant. And Uranus is like, how this like hive mind technology that they've got would be like left unchecked could destroy the world. And yes, a mutation can be a mutation, but it can also be a deviancy. So we're getting more into the semantics of what each kind of word means, and that's kind of important. And Uranus is fucked up and says some children should be smothered in the crib. No. 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 So I can understand why the Eternals are like, no, dude. Odin even expresses uncertainty at that. And he's like, we're not asking your permission, and we can't compromise on our principles. Would you go to war with us? And he's like, nah, I'm not going to go to war with you over a thinking monkey, as they had termed it. And Odin did get his drink, but that it tasted bitter. And that Earth is like saying, like, the machine's talking about this is not the first time that this shit has happened. And then we get to recently, we see this giant fucking thing that looks like it's got like Cyclops blasts and frickin' Wolverine claws and shit. And Tony's like, what the fuck are we seeing here? It's like, we'll ask questions after we stop it from eating that building. Ready? Avengers assemble. And they're kind of going at it, but then we get Icarus and Cersei popping up, and they fucking pop the damn thing's head like ain't nobody's business. And of course, Icarus is like talking through with Thor's like, we've done all these excess deviations for a long time. And Tony's talking to Cersei and saying that she kind of feels off, and she thanks him for like talking to her about it. She's like, thanks for your concern. It was just a deviant. And Tony's like, hey, whatever the motivation is, glad for help. And then she brings up that, like, we don't have a choice. Choices for mortals. It's like, interesting. And then we get, like, Earth talking about what is a deviation, what's an eternal... what's a deviation, what's a mutation, when's a thinking monkey just a thinking monkey, and when's a ticking time bomb. Then bringing up the whole revelations of, like, mutants being able to pretty much solve death and Krakoa and that whole kind of thing, and how that kind of enters into what's going on with that, and how Jack of Knives is standing in the shadow gathering information on them, bringing this up to Droog's attention. He's like, hey, they've become eternal, and Droog's like, nah, they're mortal at best. And figuring out what is the next plan of action, and they're trying to figure out if it's mutation or deviation. And of course, this is like a prologue with one exception. Eventually, you reach the prologue to the end, as we then see the three-way kind of fight starting to kind of bring up for Judgment Day, and that's where that kind of ends. I'm like, okay, I do like that setting up. If you're not that well versed with the Eternals and this kind of event going forward, this kind of helps out to get into the minds of what's kind of going on with the Eternals, how they kind of view deviancy, how they are trying to figure out what's going on with mutants and mutation, and what their kind of setup is, which is very actually kind of an interesting, almost hybrid of deviants and Eternals, if you think about it, with like how they are able to do resurrections and everything like that. We'll have to see how that works out. I don't plan on getting the event right as it goes off, but if anything, if it's really interesting or whatnot, I might get it when it's collected or whatnot. I'm more interested in like various different kind of other comics that are going off, but I do like that is a pretty good prologue, especially for a free comic book day, to be like, oh, okay, what's going on here? It gives you everything that you kind of need to know if you want to get into like the Eternals comics, the Avengers, or the X-Men, which that's a pretty good deal there. Then we get into this kind of bloodline thing, as we see that there's this vampire that is pissed off, and Brielle is about to kick his ass because her friend like won this like video game tournament and is a sore loser, and she uses like his controller and her silver to like beat his ass. Now granted, it was like his lucky controller, and she's like, I'll get you another one, no problems on that. And of course they then like split up, and she kind of goes back home, and she is back home in time for curfew, like 2 minutes before curfew, and that she was kind of utilizing the slamming door to be like, hey, I'm home. And she's like, alright, good night, baby girl. And like the mother knows that Brielle knows I don't like going to bed without her in the house. Let's see. And that she thinks that her baby girl needs her father. And then we see this kind of pick, Saffron, I know you'll keep her safe. This should help Eric, as he like sent her stuff. And it's like, oh, okay. That was an interesting little kind of like tidbit to kind of like get us introduced to her. And we're getting like Bloodline, Daughter of Blade, coming this fall. I'm like, okay, hopefully that goes pretty well. And let's see here. Then we are introduced to this like little X-Men thing, and we see that somebody's talking about what's going on for the X gene and talking about like a cure and everything, which is like, ooh, that's kind of not good. We cannot let the mutants win. Krakoa must not be forever. It's like, okay, that's crazy. And talking about how they were hated at first because they were different, and now they are hated because they're winning. As we see Mary Jane Watson talking about her aunt getting this miracle kind of drug that is helping her from Krakoa, and that the aunt kind of wants to see how Succession ends. It's like, okay. And then we get the whole thing of like mutantdom solving death and everything, and how this person is talking about how mutants aren't heroes, they're just evolutionary deviants who stole fire from the gods. Oh, there is one thing that I kind of want to hit on, though, because this is where we're back at it. During this whole thing, in the first one with the Avengers, we get a kind of continuity error here. We see that Thor here looks like he's got his gold arm and everything, and his kind of older kind of getup, instead of his like cosmic rune and him being healed up from becoming the Herald of Galactus. And then we see a kind of weird fusion state of that kind of effect here in this kind of scene, where he has his beard and everything, because normally he hasn't, like, well, granted, he has gotten his beard lately, but I was kind of confused, because I'm like, alright, cool, because at first he started without the beard, but then he got back. Well, no. He's recently more gotten onto the beard kind of track again. But we see that they're fighting each other, the Avengers and the X-Men, as we see crazy shit going down. We see Cap's shield, like, suffocating him. We see that Captain Marvel kills Rogue, and it's fucking weird. It's like, what the hell? So then we see that Mary Jane Watson takes her aunt back, puts her to bed, and then somebody's in the house. And it's like, don't want to disturb your aunt, and if you do, it's your life. And she needs an invitation to the Hellfire Gala. Ask me who I'll be wearing, and she does. And she's like, my name's Moira, and when you wake up, I'll be wearing you. As she's looking kind of like a robot thing, and I'm like, what the fuck's going on there? Now, granted, I know that Moira has become more of a villain to the X-Men recently, but I did not know that shit was going on like that. So I was like, okay, so I liked this. However, the continuity error with like Thor was kind of weird in the one Avengers, like in the Judgment Day kind of lead up one, versus what was at the kind of end. So that's my only pretty much quibble, and I mean, it's not that. I'm just more of like, it would have been nice if it didn't happen. And granted, it is a free comic book, and it's still pretty good. The story does set up what's kind of going on for each of the three little Viginettes that are in this issue. So yeah, I would recommend checking into this or whatnot if you can, if you ever see it or whatnot. And I really enjoyed it. So those are my opinions on the issue. Tell me what you guys think in the comments below. If you liked it, if you didn't like it, if you agree with me, if you disagree with me. Also like and subscribe, and I hope you have a good day.